Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something really foundational.
Yes.
Something that is the basis for every single successful English conversation you will ever have. We are diving deep into the essential building blocks of connection
Greetings, introductions.
and the absolute mastery of asking questions.
This is such a critical deep dive. When we reviewed the sources you provided, all the articles, the grammar guides, the conversational scripts, what really emerged wasn't, just a list of rules.
Oh, not at all.
It was a clear social and linguistic roadmap. Our mission today is, well, it's pretty simple. We want to transform these grammatical tools into what you could almost call strategic conversational weapons.
I like that. Conversational weapons.
Right. We want to make sure that your simple hello can naturally and, more importantly, confidently evolve into a detailed, meaningful exchange.
That allow you to gather exactly the information you need.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's unpack this and set the stage for how we're going to tackle this whole stack of knowledge. We've got a clear path laid out for us.
We do.
We're going to start by analyzing the natural flow of conversation, how to get past that, that sometimes awkward initial greeting. Then we are plunging into the true heavy lifting,
The WH keys.
a systematic breakdown of the 7 essential question words.
And following that, we move into the nuance. We'll explore the more advanced techniques, things like indirect questions, which really increase formality.
Oh, it's so important.
And we'll spend a good amount of time focusing on the common errors that instantly mark you as a learner.
Right.
Finally, we'll wrap it all up with the vital cultural context, what questions are safe, and which ones should probably be kept off the table in most English-speaking societies.
That sounds like a full journey.
It is. But if you follow this trajectory, you'll move from just passively participating in conversations to really actively directing them.
All right, let's get into it. Let's start right at that point of contact.
The very beginning.
The sources gave us this fantastic hypothetical example dialogue. You remember Sarah and Michael meeting for the first time at an international conference?
I do. It's a perfect microcosm.
It is. It shows how a simple greeting can transition into this complex, information-rich conversation without feeling, forced.
And the beauty of that dialogue is its predictability. I think for a language learner, knowing the steps, it just makes the whole interaction so much less intimidating.
For sure.
We can see 4 crucial kind of standard phases in that initial conversation. It all starts with the initial exchange.
Okay.
And this is all about establishing a polite, engaged baseline. They move past a simple hello to these highly polite, affirming phrases.
Exactly. I mean, instead of just, hi, nice to meet you, the source uses, it's wonderful to meet you.
Right. And the response, the pleasure is all mine.
That choice of language, it immediately sets a tone, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
It suggests that this interaction is valued. It's not just, checking a box. It feels like an active engagement from the very first second.
It absolutely is. And once that initial sort of formal connection is made, the conversation immediately moves into what we can call the checking in phase.
The small talk.
This is the social lubricant, right? The small talk that requires really minimal cognitive load. The questions are general and polite, like, how are you doing today?
And specific to the environment, too. Like, how are you finding the event so far?
Yes.
And crucially, these aren't requests for, like, a deep personal update.
No, not at all.
If someone asks, how are you finding the event, they are not looking for a 5-minute critique of the keynote speaker.
Definitely not.
They're just looking for a simple, positive response that lets the conversation continue. Something like, oh, it's fantastic, very informative.
That's a critical piece of cultural insight we'll touch on more later, but it's essential for establishing that flow.
Right.
And from that safety, that comfort of the check-in, they smoothly transition to sharing background. This is a really high-yield topic for an initial conversation.
Because everyone has a place they call home.
Everyone has a place.
And the sources didn't just have them mention cities. They anchored them with key cultural identifiers. Michael mentioned Seattle, Washington.
And immediately linked it to its distinct coffee culture and its massive tech industry.
Right, and Sarah, in turn, described Toronto, Canada, not just as some city in Ontario, but as this vibrant, multicultural hub famous for its diverse food scene and, of course, the CN Tower.
That layering of detail is the strategic move here. It's so important. If you only say, I'm from London, the conversation risks just stalling.
Dead end.
Dead end. But if you say, I'm from London, the part known for its historic markets and diverse street food, You've offered two immediate hooks for the listener to latch onto.
You've given them a choice.
A choice of follow-up questions. Oh, which market is your favorite? Or are you a fan of the diverse street food yourself?
That's the real difference, isn't it? It's the difference between merely answering a question and actively contributing to the flow. You're providing breadcrumbs for them to follow.
That's a great way to put it. And once they establish that general rapport, that geographical origin and tone, they move to the final stage, connecting professions.
Right, where the conversation gets deeper.
Yes, it moves toward purpose and mutual interest. In the example, they discover one is a language educator and content creator.
And the other is an English language instructor and podcast host.
So this reveals shared professional ground, which instantly strengthens the connection and opens up a whole new avenue for specialized questions.
So the takeaway from this first section is really powerful. Conversations, particularly introductions, they tend to follow this highly structured, repeatable four-step process.
Yes. From general politeness to low-pressure safety checks, then to broad, safe background topics.
And finally, to specific shared interests like a career path. If you can just remember that structure, you can stop focusing so much on what to say next and start focusing on how to ask the right questions to move it all along.
And that leads us perfectly to the tools you need to execute that flow.
The question words.
You can't navigate these stages without mastering the keys to information retrieval.
Okay, here's where we move from conversational theory to linguistic strategy. We're decoding the WH keys. Our sources are absolutely insistent on this point.
They are.
The ability to keep a conversation moving and gather accurate information hinges entirely on the successful deployment of the 7 essential question words.
Who, what, when, where, why, which, and how.
And they are not interchangeable.
That's the critical distinction. Each word is a unique tool designed to unlock a very specific type of information. Trying to use what when you really need why it's like trying to hammer a nail with a screwdriver.
Chuckles. Right. You might get there eventually.
But it's going to be awkward and really inefficient. So let's break down the unique function of each tool, starting with the most personal one.
Let's start with WHO. This one is singularly focused on identifying a person or people. It asks about the agent, the subject, or the object of an action.
Right. It's looking for a name, a role, or an identity.
It's the name tag detector.
That's a perfect analogy. If the blank space in your knowledge is person-shaped, you need who. The common examples are pretty straightforward, you know. Who is your English teacher?
Who told you about this restaurant?
Who are your favorite authors?
Those are clear examples. But I want to stop and tackle the grammar nuance you mentioned earlier, because this is where a lot of learners stumble.
The subject versus object distinction.
Yes, using who as both the subject and the object of a sentence. This isn't just some academic point. It really dictates whether you sound natural or not.
It absolutely dictates natural fluency. When who is the subject, meaning who is the one performing the action, you do not use an auxiliary verb like do, does, or did.
Okay.
You just ask the question as if the person's name was already there. For example, who teaches you English? The teacher is the subject, the doer, so the structure is very simple.
But when who is the object, the person receiving the action, the structure shifts, and that's when you need that auxiliary verb.
Exactly. Let's contrast the two to make it clear.
Okay.
For the subject, who called you? A simple structure.
Right.
Someone called me. But for the object, who did you call? It requires the auxiliary did and then the base form of the verb call.
So to simplify this for our listeners, if the person you're asking about is the doer, you don't need do. Correct. But if the person is the receiver of the action, you need do.
That's the core of it. Understanding this distinction helps you avoid that very common error of asking something like, who does teach you English? When what you mean to ask is, who teaches you English?
A subtle but very important difference. Okay, let's move on. Now we get to what, which is sort of the versatile utility player of the group.
It is. If who is the name tag, what is the giant request form?
Chuckles.
It's used for asking about non-person entities, actions, ideas, or just requesting any general information you don't have yet.
It covers so much ground. I mean, think about the common patterns we saw in the sources. They cover all the life essentials. What is your name?
The identity of a thing, your name.
What do you do for a living?
An action or a profession.
What time is it?
Just raw information.
But the real strategic insight from the sources, I thought, was what pairs with other words to become incredibly specific. It transforms it from this general inquiry into a really targeted request.
Yes, by combining what with common nouns, you efficiently narrow the scope of the answer. This is absolutely essential for fluency. We highlighted 4 specific combinations that come up all the time.
Okay, let's go through them.
First, what time? This is exclusively for asking for a precise hour or minute.
What time does the meeting start, or what time is the next bus scheduled to leave?
Exactly. Second, what kind? This asks for a genre, a style, or a category.
Like, what kind of music do you prefer, or what kind of phone do you have?
Third is what type, which is often interchangeable with kind, but sometimes it's used when you're classifying based on characteristics or structure.
So, what type of workout routine works best for you might be a good example.
Perfect. And fourth, what sort, which is very similar to kind, but this phrase is sometimes perceived as slightly more informal or maybe more common in British English.
Like, what sort of books do you read when you're on holiday?
That's it. And that distinction is key. Using what kind of is just so much more natural than trying to ask an open question about a category without that modifier. It shows precision.
It really does.
And we can't overlook the other structural uses of what for, discussion and suggestion. This moves it beyond simple information gathering.
Right, you're talking about what about and what if.
Exactly. These are conversational tools, not just questions.
What about going to the movies tonight? That's not a question asking for descriptive information, is it? It's a smooth, open suggestion. It invites collaboration.
And what if is just perfect for strategic thinking or brainstorming? What if we tried a completely different approach to this problem?
It introduces a hypothesis.
Yeah,
It gives the listener the safety to explore an idea without having to commit to it.
it's a very low-risk suggestion method.
And then there's the quick request for purpose. What for?
Yes, this is often used informally when the object is already known. Someone walks in with a package.
You bought that giant box. What did you buy that for? It's just a very succinct way to ask about the motivation or the purpose behind an action.
We've sorted out the who and the what, but conversation rarely happens in a vacuum, right? To give all those facts context, we need to know the timeline.
And that takes us directly to when.
When is the chronological anchor? Its whole purpose is asking about a specific moment, a period, or a duration.
If you need a calendar date or clock time, this is your key.
The basic uses are things we ask all the time. When is your birthday? When will you finish the project? When does the library close?
Absolutely. But for the advanced learner, what really matters is showing its flexibility across different tenses.
Exactly. When works seamlessly in the past. When did you graduate from university?
In the present. When do you usually eat dinner?
And the future. When will you know the results of the application?
It's a very flexible tool.
Now, let's look at the slightly more complex structures the sources highlighted. These often involve prepositions, which help clarify boundaries in time. These are crucial for planning and scheduling.
Okay.
First, since when? This asks for the starting point of an activity that is still ongoing.
Since when have you been learning English? Which implies you're still learning it now.
Correct. Then there's by when. This establishes a mandatory deadline. It's very important in professional contexts.
By when do you need this report completed?
Yeah.
That's a very direct, clear question.
And finally, until when. This establishes a closing boundary or an end date.
So, until when will you be staying in the city?
Precisely. Using these structures correctly just makes your schedule requests so much clearer. You're not just asking if something will happen, you're defining the precise time frame the action needs to fit into.
Next up, the compass of conversation. Where? If you need a location, a position, or an origin, this is the word you need.
Where is incredibly practical. We always need to know, where do you live?
Where's the nearest coffee shop?
Where did you put my car keys?
Chuckles. Yes, that one a lot.
If the missing information is spatial, where is the solution?
And the natural flow of conversation often involves combining where with prepositions to specify, the origin or the direction. This is a common pattern that helps clarify movement.
And we can think about the different functions here.
Okay.
For origin, where are you from? Asking about the place they were born or raised.
For destination, where are you going to this afternoon? Asking about the end point of their travel.
And for current location, often informally, where are you at right now?
That's an interesting one. The double preposition at right now is definitely a more informal or regional use, right?
Is, yeah.
And that separation of the preposition is interesting too. Why do native speakers prefer to say, where are you going to? Instead of the more grammatically, correct, to where are you going?
That's a great question, and it really speaks to the distinction between conversational English and highly formal writing. In conversational English, Placing the preposition at the end is just standard. It feels more natural, less academic. We'll actually delve into that structural difference a bit more deeply later when we talk about formality and prepositions.
Good. So we've covered the factual keys. Now we move to the tool that unlocks deep connection. WHY.
Why is the bridge between small talk and actual insight? It's the word that shows you care about a person's motivations, not just the facts about them.
It seeks explanation, reason, purpose, causation.
Right. When you ask why, you are asking for the story behind the data point. Examples like, why are you learning English?
Why did you choose that particular career path?
Why is this software update necessary?
These questions take the conversation immediately from the superficial to the strategic. If someone tells you they moved to a new city, asking where they moved to is factual.
But asking why they moved, that's relational.
That's the real connection. And just like why has a secondary, highly useful function.
Making suggestions using negation. The structure why don't or why doesn't is a standard conversational tool.
Why don't we grab some coffee? It's a gentle suggestion, isn't it? You aren't actually seeking the reason not to get coffee.
No, you're proposing the action in a non-aggressive, collaborative way. It's much softer than just saying, let's get coffee now.
It is. And conversely, when you're answering a why question, the language is structured around cause and purpose. You typically answer with because,
Stating the cause.
or to,
Yeah.
or in order to.
Stating the goal or purpose.
For example,
Yeah.
why did you join this conference? The answer would be to network with other professionals in my field. The structure matches the intent.
That clarity between cause and purpose is inherent in the answer structure.
Now, for what is maybe the most confused word in the set,
Oh, definitely.
learners often use what when they should be using which. The core definition is so crucial here.
Which implies a limited set of options or alternatives.
Think of it visually. If you can point to the choices, it's which. If the options are wide open and you can't see them, you use what. That's the easiest rule of thumb.
Let's run through a few contrasting pairs to really solidify this distinction because it's so important for conversational precision.
Good idea.
Okay, an open-ended question. What color should I paint my room?
That could be anything. Blue, red, yellow, chartreuse.
Exactly. But the limited choice question, which color do you like better, blue or green? Now there are only two options presented.
Makes sense.
Another one, open-ended, what restaurant should we try?
That could be any restaurant in the entire city.
But if I say, which restaurant should we try, the Italian place or the new sushi spot, now the options are restricted to just two.
Which is particularly useful when you're comparing concepts or values, right? It forces a clear choice between specific variables.
Absolutely. Which is more important to you when choosing a job, salary, or work-life balance? It's a focused comparison.
And like, which can be followed directly by a noun? That's an efficient way to narrow the focus.
Yes. Which neighborhood should I definitely explore? Or which phone model should I buy? It's a very effective way to guide the other person's answer toward the options you're already considering.
Finally, we reach the chameleon of the question words. How W.
It is incredibly versatile. It asks about manner, method, condition, or degree. It covers massive ground, from health to calculation.
The basic uses are things we say every single day. How are you?
Asking about condition or state.
How did you do that?
Asking about the method or the process.
How does this machine work?
Asking about the manner of operation.
But the complexity, I think, arises because how constantly pairs with adjectives and adverbs to seek out very specific types of information.
It does. Let's start with combining how with adjectives to ask about degree or extent. This is where learners often default to the wrong word.
Okay.
When you want to quantify a quality, you use how plus adjective. You're asking, to what degree does this quality exist? And you must use the adjective form, not an adverb in these cases.
So for age, how old are you? Asking about the degree of age.
For distance, how far is the airport from here? Asking about the degree of distance.
Dimension. How tall is that building? Or how big is your apartment?
All asking about the degree of dimension. And finally, difficulty. How difficult was the test?
So it's a consistent pattern. If you're asking for a measurement or a rating, it's how plus the adjective. And similarly, how combines with adverbs to ask about frequency, speed, or the way something is done.
This is the how plus adverb combination, which asks for the intensity or the rate of an action.
For frequency, how often do you exercise?
Asking for the number of time.
For speed or rate, how quickly can you finish this report?
Asking about the speed of the action.
And for manner or skill, How well do you know him?
asking about the degree of skill or familiarity.
And to wrap up, how we need to quickly address those crucial fixed phrases for quantification. These are used constantly in commerce and logistics.
Yes, the classic distinction between count and
How
mass.
much?
Used for uncountable nouns, things like time, cost, liquid volume. How much time do we have, or how much does that cost?
And how many?
Used for countable nouns, people, items, books. How many languages do you speak?
And there's another critical one, how long?
Right. How long serves two different functions. It can ask about duration, as in, how long have you been living here?
Or it can ask about physical length. How long is the bridge?
Yeah.
Context usually makes the meaning pretty clear.
It does. And finally, the informal equivalent of why that we noted earlier. How come?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's generally used when you're expressing surprise or maybe a slight curiosity about a situation. How come the office is closed today?
It's definitely less formal than why is the office closed,
Yeah,
but it gets you the same explanation.
exactly.
Okay, so that deep breakdown gives us all the individual keys. Now we need to see how they fit into the lock and really open the door to a genuine dialogue. So we're returning to that scenario set up in our sources. Michael, the visitor exploring Toronto, and Sarah, the local, acting as his expert guide.
And this section is all about analyzing that strategic flow, the back and forth, where one answer generates the data you need for the next highly specific question. It just shows that conversations are dynamic and iterative.
So the scenario begins with logistics, right? It naturally starts with when and then transitions to how. Sarah might ask, so when did you actually arrive in the city?
And Michael answers, yesterday morning. That immediately gives Sarah the timeline.
Allowing her to transition seamlessly to a more experience-based question.
Right. Oh, that's quick. How was your flight in? This moves the conversation from just a cold fact to a personal experience, which builds rapport. A simple answer like, it was long but smooth, is all you need to move forward.
Then the conversation shifts to recommendations. It uses where to gather broad information and then what to narrow the focus. So Michael asks, since I only have a weekend, where would you recommend I visit first?
And Sarah, demonstrating really great conversational strategy, doesn't give an immediate answer. She uses a question to gather more data first.
Right.
She says, well, that depends entirely on your interests. What kinds of things do you enjoy doing? History, food, or nature? This is just a perfect example of using what kind to filter the possibilities before she offers any tailored advice.
Absolutely. She used what to make her wear, recommendations specific and valuable. Then they mix measures of time and choice, how long and which.
Right. Michael might mention he's only staying 3 nights.
And that time element is critical.
It is. Sarah now uses how long as a time check and then follows up with a choice limiting question. Since you're only here for a short time, which neighborhoods should you definitely explore?
And she uses Wes, which, because she knows Toronto neighborhoods well, she's presenting a limited, curated set of options.
Like Kensington Market, Distillery District, or Queen West.
We also saw a beautiful example of cause and effect using where and why in that source dialogue.
We did.
Michael establishes his immediate location. I'm in a hotel downtown, right near Union Station. And then he uses why for causation. Why is this area always so busy, even on a Sunday?
And Sarah's response provides the essential explanation. That's Union Station. It's the main transportation hub connecting subways, regional trains, and buses. That's why there's constant movement.
It's a perfect example of connecting a location, where, to its underlying function, why.
And moving into that crucial area of local culture, the conversation naturally shifts to food.
Of course.
Michael uses the general information request, what for broad ideas, what food should I absolutely try while I'm here that's unique to Toronto or Canada.
And Sarah provides the classics, poutine and Montreal-style bagels. This then allows the conversation to briefly loop back to the who factor.
Right. Who recommended Toronto to you as a travel destination anyway? This provides an opportunity for a relationship-based answer, maybe a mutual friend or a travel blogger.
Which creates a whole new thread for further discussion.
Exactly. And finally, the decision-making process is summarized perfectly when they discuss museums, forcing the use of the choice word, which.
Michael says, I have time for one museum. Which one would you recommend? The Royal Ontario Museum or the Art Gallery of Ontario?
And since the options are defined and limited to just those 2 institutions, which is the only correct choice here.
It is.
And Sarah's subsequent advice further refines the information gathering by looping in how as a qualifier. She says, well, it depends on how interested you are in natural history. The ROM has dinosaurs and cultures. The Agay is pure art. Which topic sparks your curiosity more?
This just reinforces that question words are used to filter information, not just to extract it.
And to close out the interaction politely, they use how can and what's to manage the end of the exchange.
How can I thank you for all this amazing advice?
And what's the best way to contact you if I have another question?
These demonstrate that crucial social polish.
So the big takeaway from this section is that fluent conversation isn't about just rapid-fire isolated questions. It's about sequencing your questions logically. When leads to how? Where leads to what kind? And what leads to which?
Okay, we've established the foundation and we've mastered the core tools. Now we have to shift to refining your communication skills. This next section addresses the structural adjustments you need to handle formal settings and avoid those common pitfalls.
Right, we're moving beyond just correctness and into what you might call conversational elegance. And the first major hurdle for many learners is understanding the difference between direct and indirect questions.
Which fundamentally changes how polite you sound.
Absolutely. The concept of direct versus indirect questions is purely about formality. A direct question is quick and functional. Where is the post office?
It's efficient, sure, but it can feel a little bit abrupt or even demanding in a professional setting or with a stranger.
So to increase formality and politeness, we use the indirect structure. Think of the introductory phrase, could you tell me, do you know? I was wondering, as a polite buffer.
A buffer that forces the question to step back and act more like a statement.
Exactly. And this means we hit a crucial structural hurdle. The word order has to change.
This is so important.
It is. In the direct question, the verb comes first, for example, where is the station? But in the indirect question, the introductory phrase leads, and the embedded question reverts to statement word order.
Subject, then verb.
Subject plus verb. This is a fundamental rule you just have to internalize. You must avoid using the auxiliary verb, Dodos did, in that embedded clause, and you have to place the subject before the verb.
Let's look at a few common examples where this structure shift is just essential.
Good idea. So a direct question, informal, what time is it?
The indirect, polite version, do you know what time it is? The verb is moves to the end.
Perfect. Another one, direct. Where does he live?
Indirect, could you tell me where he lives? Here, the auxiliary does is removed, and the verb live gets conjugated.
Right. And for the past tense, direct. When did they arrive?
Indirect, I wonder when they arrived. So the auxiliary did is removed, and arrive is conjugated to the past tense, arrived.
One more, direct. Why is she angry?
Indirect, I'm not sure why she is angry. The verb is moves after the subject she.
The difference is really striking, and mastering that structural shift is a massive leap toward fluency and appropriate communication in formal context.
It is. If you accidentally say, you tell me where's a bank, you instantly sound like you're reading from a grammar rule book that, missed the final step.
Moving on from that, question words don't only exist in questions. They're often embedded in statements to express uncertainty or ambiguity or doubt.
This makes the overall statement softer and less direct.
It's a great way to soften a declaration. If you're struggling with a complex task, instead of stating, I need to ask someone, you can express your internal doubt.
I'm not sure who to ask about this specific detail.
Right. The who acts as a linker that expresses ambiguity about the agent. Other examples really highlight this function.
Like, I don't know what to do next on the project.
That expresses uncertainty about the action. Or a more reflective example. I wonder why she made that comment in the meeting.
The why there expresses internal speculation or doubt. It shows you're contemplating something without asking the other person for the answer directly.
Right. Now, we touched on this with where, but let's solidify the rule for preposition placement.
This is a big one. It really dictates whether you sound like you're speaking natural, contemporary English or highly formal, almost antiquated English.
In natural, everyday conversation, prepositions commonly come at the end of the sentence. This is standard, it's acceptable, and it's what's expected.
The examples are everywhere. Who are you talking to?
What are you looking for?
Where did you come from?
What book did you read about?
All of those sound perfectly fluid and conversational. However, the sources remind us of the highly formal exception.
Yes. The formal structure places the preposition before the question word. To whom are you speaking? Or for what purpose are you searching?
It sounds so stiff.
It does. And while it's grammatically correct, this structure is very rarely used in spoken English today. We highly, highly encourage our listeners aiming for conversational confidence to just stick with placing the preposition at the end.
It's the sign of a native or a near-native speaker.
It really is.
Okay, let's get tactical. Based on all the source material, there seem to be 5 key mistakes that frequently undermine a learner's fluency. Knowing these pitfalls is half the battle.
It is. Mistake 1, forgetting auxiliary verbs. This is the foundational error. In simple present or simple past tense questions, where the question word is not the subject, learners so often omit the necessary auxiliary verb.
Things like do, does, did, ham, is, are.
So instead of what are you doing, they'll say.
What you doing?
Or instead of where did you go last night?
Where you go last night?
And instead of what does she like?
What she likes.
That auxiliary verb is absolutely mandatory. It signals immediately that a question is being asked even before the listener hears the question mark in your voice.
Right. Okay, what's next?
Mistake 2, confusing how, what, and like. This is a highly nuanced distinction between asking for a preference or a method and asking for characteristics or a description.
And getting it wrong leads to a lot of confusion.
It does. You should use how do you like when you're asking for a preference, an opinion, or a method.
Like, how do you like your new job? Or how do you like your steak prepared?
Exactly. But you should use what does X taste, look, sound like when you're asking for a detailed description of its characteristics.
What does your new boss look like? Or what does durian fruit taste like?
Right. So if someone asks, what do you like your coffee? It's just grammatically jarring. The correct preference question has to be, how do you like your coffee?
Okay, that makes sense. Mistake number 3.
Mistake 3, what versus which. We stressed this distinction earlier, but the mistake is still so rampant. The mistake is using the open-ended what when the choices are clearly limited.
You just have to train your brain. If there are 2 or 3 visible options in front of you, immediately use it with. If I'm holding a menu with 6 items on it, I should ask, which item are you considering? Not, what item are you considering?
Precisely. Number 4 is mistake 4. Embedded question word order.
We've discussed this, but it's so critical it bears repeating.
It is. This is the structural failure in indirect questions. The mistake is failing to revert to that statement structure.
So say this out loud to yourself. I'm wondering what is the price? That's incorrect. The correction has to be.
I'm wondering what the price is.
You have to practice shifting that verb to the end of the clause. That is the moment of fluency.
It is. And finally, mistake 5. How and adjectives. This refers back to our how breakdown. When you're asking about a degree like size or speed or age, learners must use the adjective form.
Even if a native speaker might use the adverb in a different context.
Right. So use the adjective how fast, not how fastly.
Right. How clearly can you see it? Uses the adverb clearly because it refers to the manner of seeing.
But how difficult was the test? Uses the adjective difficult because it's asking about the degree of difficulty.
Understanding that grammatical relationship between how and the word that follows is just essential for correct quantification.
We've built the tools and we've defined the rules. Now let's talk about the invisible social boundaries. Mastering grammar is only half the battle.
The other half is understanding the social norms surrounding questions in English-speaking cultures.
The first point is actually generally encouraging: directness. Our sources note that direct questions are usually acceptable and are often encouraged, particularly in North American culture.
They're seen as a sign of genuine interest and efficiency and engagement, rather than as a sign of rudeness.
That's a relief for many people who come from cultures where asking questions might be seen as, challenging authority or being intrusive.
For sure. However, this directness has its limits. We have to discuss the invisible fences, the topics to avoid.
These are the subjects that are considered too personal, too sensitive, or just simply inappropriate for initial or casual interactions. Asking these questions prematurely will absolutely make native speakers uncomfortable.
And it will cause the conversation to just shut down.
The list is crucial, and it's all based on protecting individual privacy.
So what's on the list?
First, age. Specifically, asking a woman's age is often seen as taboo. Generally, you should avoid asking anyone's exact age in a casual setting.
Okay.
Next, income or salary. This is highly sensitive. You should never, ever ask, how much money do you make?
That's a big one. What else?
Weight or appearance changes. Just never comment on someone's weight. Even if you intend it as a compliment, it's a minefield.
Yeah, best to avoid it altogether.
Also, relationship status. Asking, are you married or do you have a boyfriend, can be too personal for a new acquaintance.
And then the big 2.
Political views, which are generally too volatile for a professional or casual context, unless, you're at a political rally.
Right.
And religious beliefs. Similar to politics, this is a topic that's really reserved for very close friends or specialized settings.
The rule is pretty simple then. If the question could potentially cause offense or requires the person to reveal vulnerable personal data, just save it for someone you know really well.
Exactly. So, what should you talk about? We need to stick to the safe topics.
The conversational gold mines.
The ones that everyone feels comfortable sharing and expanding upon.
The sources listed the top contenders, didn't they? Work and career,
Hobbies and interests.
travel experiences, food and restaurants.
Movies, sports, and of course, local recommendations. These are all low stakes, high engagement topics.
And we have to revisit the function of small talk. The sources really emphasize that these formulaic questions like how are you or what's up are phatic.
Meaning they are purely social lubricants. They're designed to initiate or maintain contact, not to request actual detailed information.
Right. If someone asks, how are you doing today? And you launch into a detailed account of your recent stress at work or a complex health issue,
You've completely misread the social cue.
the expected answer is brief and positive. I'm great, thanks. And you just toss the ball back without giving all that unnecessary detail.
That speed and brevity are crucial. It shows you understand the social compact. And finally, maybe the most important piece of advice for elevating your conversational game.
The active listening tip.
This means abandoning the question checklist approach. Don't just fire off your prepared questions one after the other.
Build on the answers you receive. Show that you're engaged.
If someone tells you, I work in finance and I moved here from Boston, you should pause and reflect that back to them. Don't immediately jump to, so what are your hobbies?
Yeah.
Instead, leverage the information they just gave you. Oh, Boston, I've heard it's beautiful in the fall. How long have you lived there?
Or finance, that sounds intense. What kind of finance do you specialize in?
By incorporating the question words we've discussed, particularly how long, what kind, and why into your follow-up questions, you show that you are actively listening.
You're showing that you value their input, and you're turning a functional exchange into a genuine connection.
We've truly had a comprehensive deep dive today. We analyzed the natural four-step flow of conversation, all the way from the initial greeting to a shared professional interest.
We did.
And we systematically deconstructed the 7 core question words: who, what, when, where, why, which, and how, with all their granular combinations, providing strategic context for each one.
And we tackled the advanced grammar hurdles, clarifying the necessity of statement word order in indirect questions, and giving you that essential checklist of 5 common mistakes to avoid.
Especially the complex relationship between how and its modifiers, and that crucial distinction between what and which.
And finally, we gave you the social guardrails, ensuring you know which topics are safe for initial conversation and which ones should probably be avoided, promoting cultural sensitivity right alongside linguistic accuracy.
My final encouragement to you is this: don't let all the technical details paralyze you. The goal is communication, not grammatical perfection.
That's so true.
The confidence you gain from speaking naturally, even with some small errors, it far outweighs the fear of making a mistake. The frameworks we discussed today are designed to give you strategic confidence.
So get out there and use them.
Remember that every question you ask is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn something new, to understand someone better, or to navigate the world more effectively. These 7 question words, your WH keys, are the only tools you need to unlock countless conversations and deepen every single interaction.
Start turning those keys today.